Hello, Alex Lafkus here. I'm going to tie a tried and true, super simple pattern, the Peanut Envy. Um, Yellow and olive is one of my favorite colors in it, so we might as well start there. Now, I've caught a ton of fish on these. This is a very good fly. It's obviously Kelly's knockoff of the Circus Peanut, hence the Peanut Envy. He still claims that Circus Peanut's the best fly ever. But things have changed. We've got a few new materials and stuff. I do this a little bit more old school. Now, Kelly's are the ones you can buy commercially are just fine. There's a couple things I don't really like about them because I'm very particular. The one thing I dislike is I'm 99% sure they're tied with a tungsten cone. I don't like that for where I fish. It's just, that depends. There's some rivers it's fine on. 90% of the fishing I do is in a little slower pace, so I just use the regular brass cones. It's plenty of sink. That's more than enough for what I do. I'm going to start this with the Trout Predator Light #1 in the back. I used to do it with dueling B10S hooks. I found that bend on the B10S, that stinger bend, you'll foul a little bit more. So I've gone to more of that straighter shank in the back. Also, Kelly might have changed the hooks he's tying with on those Peanut Envies. The first one were like, really small trout gap, which, as I've discussed on several occasions, I don't really like. The other thing I do on these is I like to run a leech yarn body. The reason I like the leech yarn, I can do regular chenille as well, but the leech yarn tends to lay down a little flatter. I think that's why he does the Sparkle Dove body on his, or whatever it is. But the leech yarn lays down a little flatter, which I do like on it, because when you go to tie the marabou wing in, it will lay a little bit flatter as well. So I'm just gonna, it seems like when you use that medium rayon chenille, it does kind of, it's just a little bit too much bulk to get that wing to lay in how you want it. You can see this leech yarn's kind of questionable with the white core in it, but it doesn't really matter. So like if I were tying olive and white, I would be doing, white with olive hackle. On the olive and yellow, I tend to do yellow palmer up. And you want to make sure that this hackle's kind of small again, to just kind of taper it up. This might be a little big, but it's close enough. Whatever, doesn't matter. But these are super simple. Obviously very effective though. I've caught a ton of fish on them. I tie them in a ton of different colors. It just seems like the combination of the size and the weight is ideal for a lot of my fishing, especially when it involves a little quicker presentation, not super fast, but when I'm fishing, say, moderate pace, 2 to 3 foot of water, just a single cone does it. So for the rubber legs, I'm going to run the Silly Legs barred yellow, gold, black. Usually just put 2 on there, but my last little pad I've got has 6 left on it, so we're going to do 3 because we can. And then I can throw this little pad out, or rather it will be all consumed. So then typically I put the rubber legs in now. I'm going to give myself some room here to add the legs and the marabou. Now, one thing to consider too is like you do want to end up trimming your rubber legs short enough that they won't get fouled in the bend of the hook. So I won't do that immediately though, because I want to, it's easier to keep it all combined and then trim them later, after this portion of the fly is complete. Oh, I have a feeling I'm forgetting something. Maybe I'm not. And the other thing you want to do on these is you kind of you keep the back wing pretty short. You know, it's just kind of to cover stuff up. One, it won't wrap in the bend of the hook, but two, it also gives you a little better taper on the fly. Which all in all, it just makes it look better. But you definitely have to keep it shorter so it doesn't wrap the bend. That'll drive you crazy. So after I added I'm going to use 2 plumes of marabou here, and I'm going to try to keep this really short. Like, that should be about plenty. I'm going to trim it first before I tie it in. And I'm just using, you know, like 6/0. This is an old spool of Unithread. You can use, you know, I actually prefer the Vivus, but I've got a little bit left on this spool of black 6/0 uni, so I'm just going to burn it out, and when it's gone, which isn't a problem, which will be a good thing. That's kind of where I'm at with all the old uni thread I have right now. That Vivus just seems so much stronger. I'll come in and give a couple hand whip finishes. I tie these in every color imaginable. You know, the white has done really well for me. You know, certain times of year, olive and yellow, like if I were to have a cloudy morning to go fishing, I usually start with an olive and yellow. I don't know. It might just be in my head, but I know that I've caught a lot of nice fish on olive and yellow, especially in overcast and low light. So that one's out there a lot for me. And it's been a good color for me forever. Everybody looked at me at first and like, yellow and brown, and I was like, oh man, I don't like olive and yellow. But whatever, I don't know that it would have mattered or not. The other colors I like to run these into, like I've caught fish on the black and chartreuse. Black and olive has been really good too. I do, you know, like I was saying earlier with fishing these too. So now I'm going to trim these about where, you know, kind of short so that they don't wrap that back hook. There you go. Might be a little long, but those can be adjusted. More the minnow type stuff. Like when you get into post spawn, like this is, I fish these a lot during pre-spawn because I'm fishing, you know, a lot of 2, 3, 4 foot runs that are a little bit more moderately paced. When I switch to post spawn, I have a tendency to go to the, like that little walnut or something a little lighter, because I'm fishing slower and shallower water certain times of year, and that's when I like just small bead chains or whatever. So on this, I'm using a medium cone, and this is the B10S number 1 for the front hook. I'm gonna do my typical 30-pound Maxima connection. So this is a pre-spawn. I fish it in the spring a little too, you know, especially in that, oh, I don't know, I'll fish it a little bit pre-runoff, but a lot of times at runoff time or pre-runoff, it's super shallow and low. So a lot of times like those little bead chain things that are a little lighter than this actually fish better. When you get into the heat of runoff, that's when, you know, I'll fish these real slow and kind of deep. And for 2 reasons. One, I don't care if I lose them. They're so easy to tie. You can bust these out. Like if I needed to tie 3, I would tie the back half of 3 flies immediately and then go through and finish them off. So this is, once again, those Netcraft Pro Eye 3. Really fancy. Not sure it matters. But you can really bust these out to where you have like a good number. You know, I can tie 3, 4, 5 of them real quick. Like, you know, usually it's 2 or 3 of each color. So it just works. I mean, it flat works, easy to tie. You know, it's a good bug. It's the right weight, the right sink rate for me with the amount of marabou on them. So I'm going to do that where I turn that mono over too, just because there is a hook back there. You'll notice when I don't have a hook back there, I'm just kind of looping it. But when I do put the hook, I'll flip it back. And then we're going to come in, and just to cover up that midsection, kind of make it all mold together, I'm going to go ahead and add just a little chunk of yellow marabou. That's about right. I'm going to trim this first as well before I tie it in there. And actually, I usually just butt that up right to where I ended that mono. So there you go. That'll just kind of cover up that connection. Once again, probably not the most important thing in the world, yet it does make it look better. Next thing, I've got a little bit longer piece of hackle I'm going to tie in to burn up the body. Millimeter leech yarn. I'm actually getting excited to run out of this card of leech yarn. This one I've had, I don't know, forever. And it is kind of falling apart, but it's going to work just fine for what we're doing. And I really do have an arsenal. I actually tie some of these bigger too for certain times of year. Like when I was talking about fishing the, you know, I'll fish them during runoff and I can sink them. Because it seems like during runoff, those fish are kind of full. So in that higher water, it's kind of, I always feel like higher water, 40 some degrees, like I'm going to feed them. There's very short windows that they'll be aggressive and eat big stuff. It's not very common, you know. They don't ever reach that sort of nutrient deficiency, let's call it, where they have to commit suicide. There's so much food in the water. Their metabolism is so slow. A lot of times that is really feed season. Like, you gotta feed them to have a chance. So that ends up being, you know, you take advantage of the windows where you can run the bigger baits, but you gotta know when to get off it too. You know, like, one of the advantages of having two guys fishing, you know, you go by yourself and a lot of that is like, okay, let's try this, and you know, if you have two guys to start, usually you figure it out a little quicker. You know, it's because you see it when you do have two guys, you know, and you're fishing a big river, you know, where both guys are fishing effectively, that you'll learn a lot quicker what they want. When you're down to one dude picking at spots, you know, you start going through well, are they really not biting, or am I really doing something wrong? You know, and you can switch a lot. Low density fisheries make that really hard. When you're fishing over a lot of fish, it's a different deal. When you're up here fishing over certain sections with 50, 100 fish you want to catch per mile, well, it's a different game. You go to Montana, where you're fishing over 5,000 fish per mile, you're at least going to get some response. And even a response from small rainbows sometimes will tell you something, because I've seen it to where, like, those rainbows, when they're out, usually the bigger browns aren't out. So if you find a bait, though, that those small rainbows will eat, a lot of times when the browns start going, it's the same deal. They're going to eat the same color pattern or whatever it is. I've seen that enough to have some confidence. As long as I'm seeing something on it, you know, you kind of have a tendency to see the predator when the predator moves out. Can't say it all the time, but a lot of the time that's the case. So now I've added my rubber legs again. We're going to add the marabou. And this is where I kind of like to measure it up, make sure, yeah, that's about right. A little longer than the back one, but not too long, to again avoid it wrapping the hook, and then usually you can start your wraps on that front piece of marabou, get 3 or 4 in there, and then just pop that cone up. Uh-oh. And it'll pull it down underneath that cone. There we go. Make sure you wrap back enough to really get it there. There we go. Let's see, did I do that okay? Yeah, it'll be fine. There we go. Oh, kind of slid. Oh, nope, there we go. We're there. And then, oh, I don't know. I usually just grab some stupid flash dubbing or something. What color are we going to use today? Oh, maybe that orange. Where's that bright orange? Make it an egg-sucking peanut M. Oh, here we go. That looks great. Shrimp pink. Oh, that'll be awesome. And this just kind of covers your thread. You could put a dip of glue in there too if you really wanted to. I'm just trying to, you know, fill something here. The egg-sucking peanut envy. And then we'll get a bunch of little whip finishes in here. These work, yeah, they're good. They're pretty durable. You'll end up getting like, you start shuffling these out of a lot of fish's mouths and you're going to end up with, you know, losing some marabou and stuff, but that doesn't really, you know, I've gone back and added marabou on a lot of this stuff too. There we go. And that's that guy. So real simple, but I wanted to kind of show you why I pick the hooks I do, the body material and stuff that I tie them with. Once again, if you're not fishing these, it would be recommended that you start. It's a great fly, and you'll catch a ton of fish on them. There you go, full thing done. Pretty simple, 10 to 15 minute tie, more like 15, but you know, if you do a bunch of back casts first, you're gonna end up pretty good. So that's the Peanut Envy, olive and yellow, one of my favorite colors. Enjoy. Get out there. We got another little window before the fish start spawning, so have fun now and let them rest. That's what I'm gonna do anyway. Thanks for checking out. Like, subscribe. Any comments or suggestions for videos, let me know, and we'll go from there. Appreciate it.